So there's going to be a lot of different things going on today. You also noticed the different seating plan. Throughout the service today, just different members of the EWAR team will be sharing just a 2-3 minute little testimony throughout. And so I'm the first to start. So before we do the call to worship, I'm just going to share a little bit about really about the time I had there, and really just kind of centered around prayer and worship. So the staff at EWAR, like if you think of this intensive 12-month program that they run, right, for all the women who come out of prostitution, and you think about just the intensity, right? You think about how draining it is just on the staff, right? It's intense for the women that go through the program, but it's also very taxing and intense for the staff. And so during our time at the retreat, what we saw from the staff there were that, yes, they definitely work hard, right? And at the retreat, they played hard, right? They really took advantage of just all the different things that the retreat site had to offer. But also during our times of worship, you could really see that they worship hard and they pray hard, right? And the reason why they do that, right? Just thinking about that, just really, sitting down with them is, it's the program that they run is so intense, right? That they absolutely need, right? God's grace every morning, right? Every day as they're ministering and serving just these women, right? And also when they pray, right? They do pray intensely, and it's almost a Korean-style prayer, right? For you guys that come from a Korean church background, right? It just kind of feels like that. And as they worship, right? They dance. It's just, I don't know. These Africans, these Ethiopians, they just have music and rhythm in them, right? And so it just comes out, right? Not just in their voice, not just in how they clap, but it just comes out in dance and just how they move, right? And they really do feel the music, right? They really do feel the spirit just as they're worshiping. And for me, I think the times that I was able to really just encounter God and just His power and His grace was during the times of worship, during the times of prayer, right? You could really just feel it. There's times where it just feels really thick in the room, right? And for me personally, it was really good because it was a time of spiritual refreshment. Prior to the EWAR trip, I was feeling dry. I was feeling tired, physically, mentally tired, spiritually worn down. And yes, our time there, it was physically demanding, it's mentally draining, but I was refreshed spiritually, right? And that was really good for myself. But also during the times, even at the retreat, right, we had many opportunities to pray, right, for various staff, whoever we had on our heart. And I think a lot of you guys remember Sebla, who was visiting here with Nebu a couple years ago. Right? A few months ago, she lost her sister, right? And she was really just going through a period of mourning, right? And really asking a lot of questions, really struggling. But at the same time, during the times where she would share, right, she wonders why this is all happening to her, because there's been a lot of tragedy in her life. And yet, there's this underlying hope that she has, right? That somehow through all of it, God will be faithful. That God does have a plan and a purpose through all this. And there were a couple times where I was able to just speak into her and to pray with her, pray for her. We were all split up into different workshop teams or groups, and she was in my group. And so we had a number of times just to pray for her, pray with her about that. And it was good. It was really, really good in that sense. And I'm sure a lot of the other team members here will be sharing about different aspects of the trip. With that, let's all rise.
Praise to God for His faithfulness. EWAR mission trip was not initiated by our team member. It is started a few years ago by initiating by His own Spirit of the Lord Jesus Christ, and we just simply participate in the work that He's been doing already. Our team member will share different aspects of the trip, so I just simply want to share about the preparation of the trip. Because there's a lot of our work actually had done behind the scene. November 9, 18, 27, December 6, 7, January 13, 20, 27, February 10th, 23rd, 24th, March 3rd. Other dates, actually, our team members get together each time. We get together, we spend about 2 hours, including time of prayer, worship, asking God, seeking His direction, and also for working for the fundraising and also planning the retreat. And actually, first 6 to 7 times of gathering, actually we met 12 times in total for this about 9 days mission trip. And first 6 times of meeting, it was actually a lot of things about to get things done, like fundraising or how we plan the retreat and things like that, which was necessary and was good, but felt like something is missing. But at 7th or 8th of our meeting, something beautiful happened. The God united all our team members with His Spirit, so there's a unity is formed within our team that we all sense it. And the way that God united us as a team is actually through sharing our weaknesses and our pains and our sufferings and our struggles with one another. It was true that when we are weak, then we become strong. Then what happened is that the community is formed within our team. That once we had a community within our team, and God is the center of everything we do, then the rest of the trip, it was beautiful. And also we received tons of support from our community here, whether finance support, prayer support, all the volunteers for our fundraising events, the word of encouragement, the women's groups, awesome day-to-day encouragement letter. And then when we gathered for our training, there was a time that Cherry would join our meeting and share her aspects of how should we approach this mission trip. And there were times that we also invited Jensen, and she spent about an hour with us, pray with us. There's time that Pastor John also joined the training part to share what it means to have a spiritual warfare in the mission trip. So we are in this journey together, and I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thanks to our team, your devotion. Actually, your commitment for this trip was awesome, and thanks to God. So, are you guys ready to watch the video? Yes. So we'll show you a video, and after that, the Jocelyn will come and share her experience of the trip.
Okay. So this was my very first mission trip ever, and it was to Ethiopia. And I'm very glad that I participated, and overall it was a very fun trip with a lot of laughter, tears, and sharing. And by experiencing Ethiopia firsthand and spending time with locals, it was an opening, it really opened my perspective on a variety of issues such as poverty, prostitution, and education. And it was a good experience to work as a team to hold a retreat for the staff members, and I felt that it was a rewarding experience. And I think we would all agree that we gained tremendously from witnessing and connecting with them through their love for God in Ethiopia. I saw that they're very gentle and full of joy and passion for Christ. By being a witness for God's work in Ethiopia, it reminded me of God's faithfulness. Even though there are a lot of issues in Ethiopia, there are also many missionaries that come from all over the world to alleviate poverty and to help Ethiopia in many different ways. What I found memorable is that the main director of EWAR, Nebiu, was a sponsored child with Compassion International when he was young. And I saw how well educated and how kind-hearted he is. And all the good work he is doing in Ethiopia exemplified that a small difference can cause ripples of effect in positive ways. And after the retreat, I have felt that my mood has been lifted. I didn't know what it was at first, but now I believe it was spiritual refreshment. And I found that the spiritual side of me has been awakened. It was the first time I truly felt what it means to be awake spiritually. And this trip has ingrained a positive image of Ethiopia and the cute donkeys on my mind.
Thank you. So the retreat for me was really amazing. I felt very privileged to be able to go back. I was able to go last year as well, so it was really awesome to be able to go back and actually see a lot of familiar faces from EWAR and EP that we met last year. There's obviously a lot that I could say about the whole trip, but we kind of divided things up a bit, so I wanted to share about our team and team dynamics on the trip. So personally, I've actually gone on a lot of different kind of mission or service trips in the past when I was younger. And I was very used to the style of there being one leader and then the rest of us are just kind of following instructions and we just do what we're told sort of thing. But this trip was really different. I felt there was a lot of teamwork and collaboration. Everyone was willing to take ownership and willing to step up and take over different responsibilities. So it was really refreshing for me, and it was really cool to see just a true team coming together. And it was just very apparent to me that each person was there to serve and to take part in all the things that EWAR and EP were doing in Ethiopia. So it was a really good trip for that reason especially. And something that I've learned about life, I guess, from traveling with this team is the importance and benefit of diversity. When our team first assembled, I know we were all kind of thinking it was a bit of a random group of people. Everyone had different personalities, strengths, different skills, different backgrounds. But it worked out really well as everyone was able to step up and contribute in different ways. Even having all different kinds of personalities played a purpose. I'm sad Jocelyn left because I was going to give a shout out to her, but Jocelyn is a very great example of this. She has a very distinct personality, very distinct sense of humor, but it played a huge part because she was bringing us all together all the time. She was making us laugh the entire trip. She's like a walking icebreaker. So I also found, the beauty of having a common vision and purpose, and I think of the Christian community is that it brings all kinds of people together to create something very powerful. Having a team of people who are all exactly the same can really only go so far because it only creates, I guess, one type of thing or one style or whatever. But when there's a lot of different people, the possibilities are very endless and you never know what could happen. So I know that sounds very vague, but an example of this is we had to come up with like an arts and crafts sort of workshop thing for part of the retreat. And so Nari, Jocelyn, and Deb and I met together to plan some of these workshops. And the three girls, Nari, Jocelyn, and Deb, they came up with this activity where we made these like soap scrub things with different colors of wool. There's this deep meaning behind it. But we met up to plan it, and I was the only one who didn't get it. I couldn't wrap my head around the meaning. I felt like we were trying too hard. I was just like, I don't think this is a good idea. I wasn't confident that it was going to go well. I thought it was too complicated, blah, blah, blah. But of course, at the retreat, it went tremendously well. And we actually got so much feedback from the staff that it was one of their favorite moments of the retreat, one of their favorite workshops, and they actually liked it so much that they kept all the extra supplies and are now integrating it in the EWAR rehab program. So it just goes to show you can't do things your way all the time. You miss out on a lot of amazing things if you just kind of see things one way all the time. So there's truly power in working together with others and embracing all the differences and drawing on that as a strength. I'm really coming to understand that God is much bigger than my finite understanding of Him and the world around me. And this is reinforced all the time in different ways, especially through all the people around me. I've witnessed how God can move in different ways and through different people and bring unity. So overall, it was a really great trip, and I hope more of you guys will join us next time.
I was the oldest guy in the group, and witnessed by, I'm the only guy with paper. But again, my name is Han, and Zeta asked me to speak about what I saw in Ethiopia. I only found out earlier today that I could come actually today and speak to you guys, so didn't have much time to condense all my thoughts in a 3-minute overview of what I saw in over a week. Then I remember some advice my wife gave me once, many, many years ago. Just, you're short and sweet, so just keep your speech that way. I'm glad you laughed. I didn't know if you could. Zeta asked me to write on what I saw in Ethiopia, as this was my first time in Africa, and more importantly, my first time in a developing country where I saw such level of poverty, and I saw a lot of poverty. As some of you may know, and according to Google, Ethiopia remains one of the poorest countries in the world due to its rapid population growth and low starting base. So whenever we were traveling, unless I was eating all the junk food that Esther and Jocelyn brought for us, I was glued to my window and found myself staring at the shacks, at the half-built buildings, and mostly the people. And as I was staring at them, many of them stared back, probably because they don't see a bus full of sleepy Asians every day either. Many times when my eyes met theirs, there was almost always a wave or a peace sign. And sometimes I gave them the hang loose, which kind of freaked them out. But yeah, we did all sorts of signs, and they connected. In the middle of whatever they were doing and what looked like a desperate and difficult situation, they greeted a stranger on a bus. I thought that was pretty cool because I realized that you probably wouldn't get that in Calgary. Calgary's not impoverished. Calgary doesn't have kids and handicapped people begging you for food or money at almost every stoplight. That affected us all, some of us even to tears. It was one of the most difficult things not to give whatever we had at the time, as we were instructed not to do so. But as I learned more about the culture, the people, and their faith, I also started seeing contentment. I saw some hope. I also saw joy. People taking time to talk and laugh with each other, working together and resting together. The juxtaposition, the paradox of hope in desperate surroundings, contentment in extremely difficult situations. The conclusion I came to was that God must be at work here. I learned through the years you lean more on God as you grasp the power and the enormity of God. The Ethiopian Christians I met, I think, realized this. Their God is big, bigger than their problems or situations, and the reason for their joy and hope. And that's what I saw in Ethiopia.
Hey everybody, my name's Jeremy, and I'm going to share a little bit about how this retreat, or how I saw this retreat kind of fit into what we're trying to accomplish with EWAR and EP. And the reason why I felt convicted to share about this is because I was kind of the biggest skeptic as to what exactly are we doing over there. As most of you guys know, I'm the deacon of finance, so I see the dollars go in and out, and you know, it is kind of a burden, but I sometimes have a mind of what type of value are we actually bringing. This mission trip was not a cheap mission trip. I shared with you guys our funding needs. In total, it was about $53,000, not a small amount. And 3 years ago when we hosted this retreat, it was something similar, if not a little bit more. And by the way, the church really stepped up to fund the finances of everything. So I'm just so thankful for having this great community. But having said that, as I was talking with some fundraisers or some donors that were not part of this church that didn't really have a context of what it is that we're doing, a lot of the questions that they would ask is like, oh, so you're taking the staff of this organization out to a resort. And of course, like, it didn't stop them from giving, but I could see the skeptical minds churning. And so I kind of wanted to debunk a couple of those misconceptions. One, it's not a resort. It's a resort in, as Han was sharing about kind of the level of economic, where their status is. To them it's a resort, but for us it's not like we're going to Mexico or somewhere in Hawaii with a beach resort. Like, the water was red, the beach was sandy, there were spiders in the room, it was like the rooms were way too hot. So it wasn't anything super fancy. And also I wanted to point out that the staff at EWAR, like, those people are, they're more like volunteers that are getting provided. Like, they're not making a lot of money. Everybody's doing it for a passion for the cause of what they're working with. It's a nonprofit organization. And yeah, so it's not by any means like, they're making a lot of money doing it. And some people were asking, like, why don't you just go and deal directly with the women in the streets? And something that we learned through the mission preparation was, it's not always helpful for us as a team to go into a developing country and just give out handouts to the people that are needing it. It's a better long-term strategy to go to help the helpers. So to go to those local organizations and give them encouragement, give them funding, give them whatever they need so that they can bring change to within their own society. And that is a much more sustainable and long-term strategy. So one of the things, like, I'm kind of I studied a little bit of business, and one thing that I've always been really cognizant about is development of culture and how important an organization's culture is to like a person's drive to kind of further the needs of that organization. And by us going to Ethiopia, we were able to provide them a venue where they could just really foster that culture and provide encouragement to them. So, by having that, one thing that I really realized, it's not about us. It wasn't about us going in and sharing and kind of like telling them our story. It was about us facilitating a location for them where they could share with each other. They could share about what God was doing in their lives. And yeah, so I know that we only do this once every 3 years. I think we should be doing it more often. And I think it's just we left such an impressionable mark into them. And I really do think we encourage them to continue the fight that they're doing. Thank you.
Hello. So one of the things that really stood out for me for this trip was just how smoothly the entire trip went. Somehow everything just worked out in a weird way. Even with our testimonies, so we were asked to prepare our testimonies before the trip, and then we were told that we're going to share it at some time throughout the retreat, but we don't know when. And most of us didn't actually know when we would share until the night before the retreat. But as we were sharing, I really realized, you know what, like, every single testimony just fits so perfectly. Whether it was the theme of the workshop, the theme of the session, the Bible verses, it just all worked out somehow. It just fit so perfectly. And then on top of that, there's a lot of little things that just happened where something could have gone wrong and affected something else, but it still worked out. Like, we brought a little photo printer to the retreat, and I actually forgot the cord at home. And I was like, oh shoot, what do we do now? And I look across the room, there happened to be a projector that uses the exact same cord. And it's like, what are the chances? There's a whole bunch of little things that just happened, and even the fact that we didn't have diarrhea throughout the 5-hour bus ride, but we had it before and after, it was like, thank goodness. And I truly believe, though, that all of it went the way it did because of prayer. Prayer from the team, prayer from the EWAR staff, and prayer from everyone here. So just wanted to say thank you so much for your prayers, because it really wouldn't have gone the way it did without them.
So I've been asked to share about the relationship between EP, Alilta Products, and Collective Goods. For those of you who don't know, just a really quick recap. EWAR, so the charity that we threw the retreat for, they created an income-generating facet in order to become more economically self-sustainable. Right now, they're majority supported by international NGOs. So Alilta Products is when the women from the 12-month rehab program, they graduate and they give them a skilled trade, so they teach them how to make scarves and jewelry, and they give them a job. And for those who don't go into Alilta Products, EWAR makes sure that they get integrated into a job opportunity so that they don't have to go back to life on the streets. So as a relational relationship that GCF has with EWAR, we are always asking them, how can we best support you as an organization? And so a couple years ago, they approached us and said, hey, we could use some help with EP. As a response to that, God, it really was, he just like grabbed people of skill sets that he's been working on all their life to be able to form this super team that is now Collective Goods. And we've run for a year now. And to be honest, when I started doing this, I was probably the biggest skeptic, which is a really bad thing to admit because I was leading it. But just from a business perspective, a retail perspective, I've done online stuff before, it just doesn't make financial sense what we're doing. There's no way that it could possibly be successful. But it was. It's just like we were blown out of the water all year round. So last year when we went, the main priority to go was to engage with the Alilta Products, and that was our first meeting together as Collective Goods. At that time, it didn't go well. It was really awkward, to be honest. And meeting with the Alilta Products, there was a distinct wall up, and it was very different from the vibe that I had, that I felt that GCF had with EWAR, with the relationship already established. And in further talks with them during that trip last year, I realized that they had been majorly scarred by past North American organizations who came to help, that they engaged in this retail relationship and obviously just spiraled. And so to them, we were just another North American team coming down, claiming to help, but at the end of the day, we probably had our own priorities. It was very difficult to say that, no, we're different, we're here just to help you, because words mean nothing. So this year, for me personally, it was really important to go down and bring down some of our Collective Goods team, even though that wasn't the focus, in order to further establish a relationship that we've begun very rocky last year. And praise God, so we did the retreat first, and we didn't do any kind of official business meetings until the day before we left, which was a little bit stressful for me. I wear two hats, right? It's like the business hat and then the GCF hat, and I had to toggle back and forth. And so that side was fighting the whole time, but wow, it was just such a testament, because that business meeting after the retreat had a whole different flavor. And even though we had all these different tasks that we wanted to accomplish, because communication is really difficult. So trying to manage even little orders and emails and stuff is so hard. So we just, as a team, we had all this stuff that we wanted to accomplish when we went down there. Say, hey, we need to get this done and all this stuff. But we did that, but it wasn't important. It was secondary to this feeling, this extreme change in the atmosphere that we had together, because we had formed a relationship over time, even the short time that the retreat afforded us. And even this little illustration, I say it as funny, but it means so much. So since the last time we were down there, they had lost a major staff member on Inalta Products who did all of the liaison with us, and they hired somebody else. And it's spelled that person's name is spelled Tegene. And the last time the girl who was in there, Sebla, she was a young woman. And so when I read that in our emails, I thought her name was Tegene, and she was a young little woman. We went down there to realize that he is a very tall, old man, and his name is Tegene. But that's just one example of, like, I've been talking to this person back and forth via email, talking all this business talk for the past 6 months, and I had no idea the gender. But during the retreat, Tegene and I, as well as Jeremy, we, I think, formed one of the stronger relationships and just had so much time to talk. And most of it, for me at least, wasn't about business at all. It was about learning about where he came from, and he has a fascinating story. But all that to say that at the end of the day, I'm reminded that it's all about the relationship. Like, what we're doing as Collective Goods to support Inalta Products, it's nothing. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. And all the work that we did preparing for the retreat, and there was a lot. There was a lot of organizational aspects, and we had scheduling and all this stuff. And I think our team did a really great job to keep it into perspective, because at the end of the day, what matters was the relationship capacity and allowing space for God to be in that place and to work amongst each other. And like Jeremy touched on, during the retreat really was just an opportunity for EWAR and EP as an organization to further develop their relationships. So there's 4 EWAR sites, and one site is outside of the city. It's a flight away, 4 hours, right? But otherwise, the other groups are kind of pretty central. So that site is called Bahadar, and they're a very new site compared to the rest of the organization, and they're having a lot of difficulty, and there's very little believers in that city, and so they face a lot of adversity over there. And so a lot of people, it was the first time meeting the staff of Bahadar, and through that retreat, this testimonial from Bahadar that came where 2 women were just recently saved out of the 10 that are in the group currently, and it was a wild testimonial. And just all of EWAR staff, there was about 70-ish, were just, as this lady was sharing from Bahadar, were crying and praying with her and just supporting that site, and they just used that site as a focal point to support each other, and just to watch that, to witness what it means to be in community with each other, to support each other, to encourage each other, with God in the center, was amazing. So to me, that's what church is, right? For all the things that we do organizationally, it's at the end of the day, it's about engaging in a relationship with each other, and through that, engaging in a relationship with Christ. So that's my prayer for our continued relationship with EWAR and Inalta Products, as well as my prayer for GCF. So thank you so much for all of your support. I think God was glorified and He was in that place, so I feel like it was a success.